Appreciate it.
Whoa, there we go.
With all due respect, I don't have pity for you black niggas. That's the way I feel. Screaming Black Lives Matter, all the black guys rather be deadbeats than pay your bills. Yelling nigga this and nigga that. Call everybody nigga and get a nigga mad. As soon as I say nigga, then everyone react and wanna swing at me and call me racist cause I ain't black. Well, pound that then. Talking about slavery like you was around back then. Like you was picking cotton off the fucking ground back then. Like you was on the plantation getting down back then. Alright, look. I see a black man aiming his gun, but I'd rather see a black man claiming his son. And I don't mean just for one day and you done. I mean, you still trapped in a rut. And I work my ass off and pay my taxes for what? So you can keep living on free government assistance, food stamps for your children, but you still trying to sell them for some weed and some liquor or a fucking babysitter while you party on the road cause you ain't got no fucking goals? You already late. You motherfuckers need to get your damn priorities straight. Wait. It's like you proud to be fake, but you lazy as fuck. And you rather sell drugs and get a job and be straight, and then you turn around and complain about the...
Wow. That was really quite intense.
Yeah.
I know that was Indy who put that on for his book, What If White People Were Slaves? That was wow. That was really intense, Indy. Oh, I'm Indy's taking over. Hello, welcome everyone to the Book Extra. I hope you're doing all right. I hope you had a good week. I'm your host, Jules. We've also got my lovely co-host, Adam, and my other lovely co-host, Reese. Yeah, that was a very powerful way to start off the show. Indy, did you want to, I know you're not on camera, but did you want to say anything about your book? Did you want to share any information about it?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. How y'all doing? How you doing? Welcome to the Book Slam on the Book Slam Extra on Sunday. I am the host of the Book Slam Clubhouse. I actually hosted on Tuesday nights from 8 to 10. Jules and Reese and Adam host today. But yeah, this is a trailer that I'm about to launch. The first time it's actually been seen outside of us. I'm about to launch, and I just wanted to get some feedback. I loved watching everybody's facial expressions because even though you can't see each other, I can see you. So I just want to get some feedback. It doesn't matter who we start with. It just real quick, and then we can get straight into the book slam. Is that okay, Jules?
Absolutely fine with me. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Let's start with Christian. Welcome to the Book Slam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. What did you think about the trailer?
Again, very powerful, very eye-catching. You can't look away. There's so much imagery that is very strong and very focused to the point, and I loved that.
Thank you. And I'm going to try to pronounce this. I'm probably going to rip it apart, but Khalifazi?
Khalifaziz, yes.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, so I thought it was good. Yeah, it was very jarring, very surprising, but I think what it really does is it sort of captures, and y'all might laugh, but it sort of captures sort of the same appeal that Uncle Ruckus on the Boondocks has. Because like a lot of people look at Uncle Ruckus and think, oh, like Aaron Magruder's making fun of Black people who hate themselves. Well, yes, if you pay attention to what Uncle Ruckus actually says, he says the things, he brings that self-criticism of the Black community that Aaron Magruder knows he can't get away with putting in any other character's mouth. And I think sometimes that's something that Black creators kind of forget about, like sometimes we do have to self-criticize, even if it's jarring, even if it's surprising, because that's what makes people listen and really think about, how we're out here, how we're living.
True.
So yeah, I loved it. I liked it for that.
Cool. I'm going to, it's funny you say that because it's real interesting that you say that because you'd be surprised. I'm about to see if I can upload it real quick, but I am going to show you something that might be kind of revealing. Zoe, what did you think about the trailer? Welcome to the Book Slam. Welcome to the Book Slam.
Thank you for having me.
30 seconds. I'm sorry, Jules, Adam, Reese. What you think about it?
No. Take
I mean,
now
it was unexpected. It's very hard hitting. The music invokes a lot of thought and a lot of like parallels to stuff that's happening in the UK, which I find quite interesting.
Okay, cool. And then Mark,
Yes, sir.
Mark, what'd you think about the trailer?
I think everybody already mentioned it. It was very jarring. One thing that I remembered when it was playing, I thought back to a music video that I think a couple years ago. I don't know if it was T.I. or it was a hip hop artist. He actually made a video and replacing all the murdered black kids with white kids.
Wow.
So yeah. So basically, like Trayvon Martin, basically instead of Trayvon Martin, there was a white boy that was walking home with Skittles and a drink, and then a black cop shot him. And then the same thing about the 12-year-old boy who got shot in Ohio. His name escapes me right now. But
I almost called it.
the one with the toy gun.
Tamir Rice.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Tamir Rice. Yes.
Tamir
So
Rice.
they replaced him with a white boy, and then a black cop shot him. And then so that trailer reminded me of that music video where the roles were reversed, and it made me think, man, what if the roles were reversed? What if it was us on the other side of that trigger?
Exactly.
And then how would the public opinion be? Like, what would be the overall reaction? So that's what it made me think about.
Cool. Now, before I ask the three hosts, the four hosts actually, because Melanie has just joined us, I'm gonna reveal something else to you all. I'm only going to take a second because how do you pronounce your name, Khalif Aziz?
Khalif Aziz. Khalif Aziz. Yeah.
Aziz. Okay, Khalif Aziz. Thank you. Based on what you just said, let me show you this. I'm only gonna play like 20 seconds of it.
With all due respect, I don't have pity for you black niggas. That's the way I feel. Screaming Black Lives Matter, all the black guys rather be deadbeats than pay your bills. Yelling nigga this and nigga that. Call everybody nigga and get a nigga mad. As soon as I say nigga, then everyone react and wanna swing at me and call me racist cause I ain't black. Well, pound that then. Talking about slavery like you was around back then. Like you was picking cotton off the fucking ground back then. Like you was on the plantation getting down back then. Alright.
Yeah. The person that was the person was actually supposed to be white.
Okay. I see that now. Well, yeah, which I think is so good because it really shows the power of framing, place it in one context, it has one meaning, another context that adds to the meaning. By placing it in the context that you did, it really does really trigger a very self-reflective, at least in my opinion, it triggered a very self-reflective thing, it made me just stop and think. Yeah.
Cool. And I'll group you all together, Jules, Adam, Reese, and Melanie. I know that you all have to get on with your show. What were you all's thoughts?
I was uncomfortable.
Okay. No, that's honest.
Yeah, I felt really uncomfortable. Probably more uncomfortable watching that than I did the other one, but then I just think that the language that's used is very emotive, very, very strong, and yeah, it hurt. I think that was a hard message. I don't know who that guy is, and I don't know what his belief system is or anything else, or his political bias. I know he's obviously rapping. I know he's got the MAGA hat on and stuff, but yeah, it's uncomfortable is probably the best word to describe.
Well, what's interesting is that the white guy that you saw is not the person that's rapping. The person that's rapping is actually the black guy that they showed, because they flip it around where they're actually having a conversation. So the second half of that is the black guy actually talking back at him. So, but he actually wrote the entire thing. So that's his voice. It's just interesting. Adam, Reese, Melanie, what'd you think? Melanie, I don't know if I said it to you earlier. Go ahead. Adam and Reese, what'd you think? Hey, Melanie.
Well, we've had the pleasure on the Book Slam to have you have several chapters of What If White People Were Slaves read to us, and it is incredible. I'm a horror author, and the horrors that really happen to people that you represent for us in a different light is totally wild and uncomfortable is a great way to put it, Jules. Shocking, but powerful and poignant and necessary in this world where everybody's being shitty to everybody else right now. So yeah, strong.
Good deal. Reese, Melanie?
I think the sad part is that people have been crappy to one another forever. But I do like the fact that it's been. I like the parallel between what we've heard from the book, and I know some of you guys may not have had a chance to tap into that. I would definitely suggest go back and check out some of the book slams from Clubhouse, and you can hear some of those. And of course, grab the book, of course. But there's just the parallels are so cool because being able to see that, even though I heard it in the rap initially, I kind of figured out what it was going to be before you showed that second clip.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I was kind of taken in by it at that particular point, but man, I love that parallel. I like to see that opposition because it actually shows you both ends of it, and it really makes you think.
I got you. And last but not least, the voice. Melanie, what'd you think?
Hello. I'm not sure if you guys can hear my voice as well today. I'm actually riding along. But I, just like Jules and Adam and Reese all said, it is a powerful message. And it does evoke emotions. I can understand Jules' sentiment about being uncomfortable. It is going to make some people uncomfortable because the nature of the book is going to make people uncomfortable. I think it is great. It is a great tool to get people talking about it, to start the discussion, but you will have those people who do feel uncomfortable to the point where it may, prevent them from being able to hear it. But like Reese said, if excerpts from the book were embedded in that, like make it like an undertone, I think it'll be more impactful because it does go along well with what the book says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Well, look, I'm gonna go ahead and fade to black. Pardon that, I guess reference. But anyway, I want to thank everybody. Thank you all for your feedback. This has been a tremendous experience for me. But yeah, I'll actually be touring. I'll start touring in about a month. So I'm really excited. Congratulations on everything that you all are doing. Jules, Adam, Reese, Melanie, I'm handing it back over to you. And I'm out of here. Thanks again, everybody.
Bye, Charlie.
Just waiting for someone to say that.
Missed that opportunity. Dagnabbit.
You gotta take those opportunities when you have them.
I know, right? Oh my goodness.
That was well placed.
I'm glad Indy was able to welcome our guests today. That was great. Hi, friends. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us on the Book Slam. This is exciting. This is not how we normally start our show, but that was amazing. And to have given him some feedback, I think that's going to help him to change the video a little bit, update it, make it more what people are looking for. I think that's awesome. So thank you for giving him a little feedback. That was great.
Yeah, it's nice because he's like the producer of this, and he does the show on Tuesdays as well. So I think for him to be able to jump in and get sort of, I say live feedback, but on the hop, I suppose. So yeah, it's a very good book. I would recommend reading it. Okay, so let's crack on with the show.
Why don't you introduce yourself, Jules?
Hello, I am Jules. I'm the host. I also run a small Discord for writers. I also I'm obviously on here. I also I do some publishing, and I'm also an author of dark fantasy, and sort of mixes in with some science fantasy, sword and sorcery, Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of thing. And yeah, I've written 4 books. I've got 3 more on the way. And that's me. Say hello, welcome. What about you, Melanie? Would you like to introduce yourself? Is she still here? I can't see her.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Calling me Vanessa Voice, and it's writer, poet, and photographer. Actually, I'm headed to a photography event right now, and I love the book slam. I'm excited about the guest that we have on today. It's like I am a newly fictional writer. I have been writing like autobiographies and things that pertain to my life, but now I'm delving into the fictional world. So I get a lot of ideas and a lot of technical information from listening to you guys. So I'm just excited about today's show. You may not see me on because I'll be listening in my ears because I have to go do this event, but just know that I am excited and I want to hear all your ideas and get my ball rolling on this fantasy world.
Yay.
Very exciting. And Reese, would you like to introduce yourself? Thank you so much, Melanie.
Sure. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Reese, aka Reese the Storyteller. I am an author, a poet, and ready to get this second book dropped for the Scrap series. So, man, my favorite thing about this platform is that we do get a chance to see a lot of different we get a chance to see a lot of different people come up and present their projects. And man, y'all, I've been telling people for the last couple of months, and Mark can attest to this because he and I met in January, that my TBR list is ridiculous right now because of everybody that I run across and everybody that I've got a chance to listen to through Book Slam on Tuesday nights, as well as the folks that have come and graced our stage live. And I mean, I'm just happy to be here, and I'm glad everybody was able to make it today.
We're glad to have you here as well, Reese. Thank you so much. What about you, Adam? Top over to you.
I write horror. Like I said, I've got 2 books out, The Mantis Variant and Mantis Equilibrium. They're both gruesome, terrible horror books, and I love them. They're so fun to write. I also help host this, and we really just enjoy celebrating creativity and writing and especially underrepresented voices. So we love everybody that's here, and so that's who we are. Yay!
Yay. Wonderful. And we have got some wonderful guests here as well. So I know we've kind of like very briefly introduced them through Indy talking about his book. Would you like to introduce them? Because I know Reese and Adam, you were both the people who talked to these people, didn't you, the most? So I'll be delighted to hear more about our wonderful guests that we have on today.
Sure, yeah. Christian, do you want to go on first and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing style and where we can get your books if they're available already?
Sure, yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Christian. I go by CMS Queer Lit on Twitter, where I'm the most active as far as book stuff goes. I am currently still writing. I have not finished my first draft yet, but Grail, which will be my debut novel, has kind of been in the works for a couple of years. I had some friends that are also authors, and they kind of pushed me to finally share this story that I've had kind of cooking under my belt for a while with the world. So this will be, like I said, my debut novel, Grail. It's going to be a sci-fi thriller kind of vibe. BIPOC cast, queer cast, and it's truthfully a story of family, whether it be found family or blood. Family is what you make of it, and it's just all wrapped up in a cool little sci-fi thriller mutant bow.
Hey, that sounds very exciting.
does definitely sound exciting, and don't worry. I think it's taken most of us our debut novel to take several years, especially with the world building that you go on and the character sort of designing and developing that you do. I can't speak for everyone, but I know that my first one was about 4 or 5 years. So yeah, so you're doing better than I did. What about Zoe? Now, would you like to introduce Zoe for us?
Oh, yeah, Zoe, you want to jump on and tell us a little bit about yourself now as well, and your writing, and again, if it's available, where we can get it?
Yeah, so hiya, I'm Zoe. You can find me on social media as Let Zoe Spoil You. I am author, researcher, artist. So I write fiction and non-fiction. My non-fiction work is very much in the realm of the Japanese media industries, particularly the lost decade culture, which is the 90s in Japan. So anime, stage, and live action adaptations. I also write, a lot of research I've done over the years and spent time living out in that part of the world as well. When I write fiction, I write queer paranormal romance, which was my first novel, Song of the Night. But I'm now definitely going more towards straight up horror. My current novels I'm writing, The Writhing, and I've just suddenly gone blank when I put on the spot. I basically write queer horror, Lovecraftian, tentacles, teratophilia, demonic possession, that kind of bag is my world, which is also what I do for art. I call my art homoerotic Lovecraftian body horror.
Wow.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
We'll see some of those images at some point. That sounds exciting. Yeah.
It does, definitely. It does. Very good. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you. And is it Khalif, or is that the way you pronounce your name? Is that the shortened version of your name? Because I've seen that Reese has addressed you as that. Is that okay?
Yeah, Khalif. Yeah, Khalif is fine. Yeah, I'm Khalif or Khalif Aziz, and I am an Afro surrealist writer. So I deal mostly in like Afro fantasy, or Afro horror. Yeah, I do fantasy and horror. Right now, I don't have any books out except for the sample chapter of my upcoming book. Sample chapter is called Asuki Suki Now, because that's what people say after they read it, and it's a sample chapter for a series I have about an all-black magic school in New Orleans called Hidden Black Conjure University. The first book will be called Delinquents. It's in the editing phase right now, and that's the only thing I have like physical coming out. Everything else I mostly just post online. That's where I post my short stories, primarily, which I write about superheroes, fantasy, and of course horror stories. I have a series out called Obsidian Shards, which is an anthology horror. One story of which was actually turned into an episode of this podcast called Nightlight for Black horror writers. And yeah, that's basically it. My stuff can be found on my website, storybyka.com, or just on Instagram at khalifaziz42.
If you what we could do is, for this goes out to all of our lovely guests today, if you want to put in the private chat all your links, what we'll do is we'll put them up on the screen for you and share them in the live comments as well, so you can sort of get your information out there for the audience. Okay. And we have, last but not least, we have Mark, who's been very patiently sitting, waiting for us to introduce him. Mark, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Wow, a lot of creatives here, especially in the fantasy horror realm. I mean, that's wow. I mean, speechless as to the amount of authors that's here. But yeah, my name is Mark Bosajor. My nickname is Black Cyrano, which is actually a moniker I've given myself recently, because I actually, even though I write urban fiction, I actually read a lot of Old English, a lot of English literature, and Shakespeare and Edmund Rostand are some of my author idols growing up, and I used some of their stories to help me create some of my stories, only using modern day vernacular. And recently came out with a new book, which is entitled Street Retribution. And Street Retribution is sort of like it's actually the continuation of my first two novels, The Preacher's Web and Adia's Ballad. Basically, it takes place in New York, where I'm from, and basically, it's about a preacher who is in a church community, and he's trying to preach love and forgiveness to a community that's ravaged by gangbangers, drug dealers, prostitutes, and he has to try to keep things afloat. And basically, in my stories, I go through each character and what they go through and their romantic interludes, and also some of the things that they deal with throughout these novels. So basically, I basically create a community within my novels, and I think that's what makes it so fun, because it's like my escape. And so when I write, I take my readers on this trip with me. That's why I call it a journey. And I want to shout out Reese, by the way, because Reese was the one that introduced me to this podcast. And I'm grateful, Jules, for you and Adam and Reese for inviting me. And she actually tried to get with me a few months ago, but I couldn't do it because I had so much, engagements between writing and day job, and also speaking engagements. So it's really tough. So I was finally happy to get the time to, appear today. So thank you.
We're so glad you're here. Yay.
Well, absolutely. I just want to say a massive thank you to you and to all of our guests today. I really appreciate you coming on. And, if you enjoy yourselves and you'd like to come back and see us again, you're very welcome to. And I just want to correct something that you said, Mark, if that's okay. You said that you...
Uh-oh, Jules, we lost you to the Matrix.
What just happened?
Hey, okay, I think you're coming back now.
Oh,
we lost you for a second, Jules.
I just wanted to correct something that you said just slightly, Mark, because you said that you were in awe about the amount of creatives that were here and things, and that there were so many authors. You are part of that. You are also extremely creative, and you should take ownership of that and be proud, because what you've explained with your book sounds absolutely amazing. So because there's fantasy and horror, and it doesn't mean that it diminishes any other genre any less. It's just a different genre. So I really I want you to correct that and start believing you are creative.
Love celebrating creativity, all of it. Yeah,
absolutely. So the theme that we're going to talk about tonight, I've kind of left it fairly open, because everyone has their own perceptions on scenes, and everyone has their own styles, and I think it's really important to celebrate that. And I wanted to sort of look at things that everyone can have an input on, that is going to lend itself to their own creativity, and that is how we write scenes. And writing scenes is obviously like the bread and butter of our stories, but how do we actually make our scenes interesting? How do we make them engaging? How do we get our readers to be directly involved? So what I would like is, if you would like to do some reading from your book that kind of lends itself to a particular scene that you feel would really showcase a particular aspect that you're trying to get across, or a message that you're trying to send the reader, or something that you feel could be quite destroying to the reader, or whatever you feel like that in that sense, I would love for you to do that. That would be amazing.
What you're just saying right now is great. Mark, what you were saying a minute ago about making community in your book, I loved that. I've never heard that saying before. No. That was beautiful. And that I think is a major part of creating a good scene, is having a community of characters that interact, or either hate each other or love each other, whatever they're going through. Oh, that is a great way to put that. Community. Oh, yeah, I'm stealing that.
Because the more we write, like the more books we come up with. By the way, I've written 8 books and working on the 9th book right now. Wow. So the more books you write, those characters become part of you. Those characters, you actually start to love the characters. You actually start to feel the characters. You get the same emotions as your characters. So it's true when they say they become a part of you, and they really have. Over the years, as I've grown, they've grown. So that's why I call it a community, because, it's I'm one with them. So I feel what they feel, and then I grieve with them, I rejoice with them, I love with them. So that's why it's, and as writers, I believe that it brings out the genuine, how do you say it? It brings out our characters as being genuine. Like, people can relate to that. People can relate to relationships. They can relate to family. They can relate to friends. They can relate to struggle. They can relate to growth. So that's what makes it powerful. And I've read other contemporaries, other authors, including my dear sister Reese, which I finished reading her book, and I am also anticipating part 2, because her book kept me up many nights, wondering what's going to happen to this character, that character. So, and I've given her feedback on chat too, so she knows.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Doesn't that feel so good? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, man.
But Mark's right. A lot of times, I think as authors, we tend to, because we're so sensitive about our craft, we tend to forget that we have a big part of the building those particular scenes is showing the emotion of your characters. I was writing a chapter for the new book the other day, and I was literally sitting in here crying in front of my computer, and I'm like, I don't want to do this right now. But it was just a part of the process. Everything that was happening within that scene, I felt what was happening in the scene. So it really does make a difference. So when you're able to really pull that out of yourself, then it shows in your writing. It really does.
And you know what's the toughest part of that is when you're in speaking of that, when you grow up with a character, it's really painful when you get to the point where you have to kill the character off.
I made
it does, because he grew up with you, and then unfortunately, because the story asks for it, though, there has to be a story arc, there has to be conflict, there has to be some type of situation that other characters can grow from, other characters. So there has to be a sacrifice.
Endings and beginnings that lead to other things. Yeah,
exactly. So in order for something to begin, something else has to end. So it's painful for me, but I have to do it. So
yeah.
And Reese probably knows, because Reese got street retribution, so she knows.
Ooh, there's so much. There's so much.
In my ones, I've got a character who, because I'm quite interested in mental health and trauma recovery, so I've kind of embedded that in my stories. And my main character in my dark fantasy series, she does some really dark stuff in book 2, and it's about how she recovers from that. Is there a recovery? Is there a point where there are too many dark things going on in a person's life that they or dark acts that they commit that they can't then recover from? So a lot of my stories centered on her in terms of how she manages that. And yeah, I agree. I think you do need to have conflict, and you do need to have death, and you do need to have situations which are difficult. And sometimes situations that you can't get your character out of.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what makes for a classic story. That's what makes a good story, in my opinion. Because basically, and many other people may agree with this too, if you have your character think or reflect, especially your main character, something, if someone around him dies, like a loved one or a family member, or someone suffers loss, all of us here have suffered that at one point or another, so it's something that's, again, relatable to the reader, and it's relatable to people, so that, okay, I went through this, but I see that this character went through that too. Sort of like an example in my book, Street Retribution, you have a lawyer who, he had a past life as a gang member, and he's running for his life, because basically the person that he helped lock up, so the laws of the streets, of the hood, you can't snitch, because if they happen to get out, you'll be the first one they're coming after. So basically, he finds that he has a contract out on him, and he has to try to live his life, do his job, but at the same time, his head is on a swivel, because he sees people around him being slowly eliminated. So, you know, that's where what's the word I'm looking for? The suspense of the book comes into play. So
that's a really good explanation.
Yeah.
I just want to say to all of our guests that this is an open discussion. Please don't feel you have to sit and wait for us to sort of name you, and like you can join in and add your comments and your thoughts. So please don't feel like you have to sort of wait your turn. It's absolutely fine. If you want to say something, you go ahead. We're very relaxed here. What about, I mean, that is open to everyone. What about you guys? What do you all think about the importance of how scenes play out in books, and what is relevant and what's not, and what makes a scene engage the reader the most?
This is hard to answer because I've got a very different like writing process to many people. I'm neurodivergent, so my brain works in wonderful ways. So whenever I'm start the creating process, when I create something, I do the art for it first. So the characters
Nice.
like a weird appear in a vision. So like
that's great.
so I've got props. So binary demons. Oh, there's my camera. So I basically the character appeared like one of the monsters from the horror, like he just like, you know, he turns up in my head, and then so I draw them all out, and I have artwork of monsters and characters and things, and then they tell me their stories, and therefore I just write what they've told me. So I sound a little bit like a crazy person, but there are other voices that's
all of us.
That come.
We all have voices in our heads. So I guess in one way or another, we're all insane in one way or another. That's what we are.
I wanted to say about that. Oh, sorry. Continue.
No.
Go ahead.
I want to say about that. Like the voice about like, you know, the characters telling you. So it took me 4 years to write Delinquents, and that's because I had a story planned out, and as I was writing, the characters would not do what I wanted them to. The characters refused to cooperate, and so I had to cobble together something based on what they wanted to do, not what I wanted. And now that, you know, the first drafts are done, when I share them with my friends, family, they're like, man, I really love this narrator's voice here, because the narrator is sort of a separate character. And they're like, but you couldn't keep I know it's like you didn't keep the narrator's voice going all the time. Why didn't you? And I'm like, look, the narrator comes out when he feels like it. I can't control him. He comes out when he wants to. He only comes out when the narrator comes out when he thinks that the story is really interesting and really wants to capture people's attention. That's when he comes out with his flowery, like poetic language. Everything else is just me getting people to that point. So yeah, I definitely get that. You know, the characters, all of it has a mind of its own, and we're just like the conduit that it flows through.
Exactly. We're the folks holding on to the leashes of all the puppies running around.
Yeah. That's good enough. I have heard other authors who said that so they've kind of said the opposite, where they've said authors who believe that their characters lead the story don't get the fact that actually the characters are them. And I get that, but I think it's just a different way of thinking, isn't it? Much like everything else. And I think you get some authors who sit in that camp and some authors who sit in the camp that we're talking about, where our characters very much rule our lives. Just like you have pantsers and architects who are complete polar opposites. You know, so I don't think there is a wrong way of viewing our characters and how we experience our characters. And I think the way that we write and how we write is working for the way that we do it. So like, I love what you just said, Zoe, about the fact you see your characters in your head and then you draw them, and then from that comes your story. And I love, you know, your example, Khalif, as well as what you said in sort of the difference between the narration and the actual characters themselves. And obviously, Mark, as well, your take on it too is really interesting, with the way that you've kind of like embedded such a creative way of telling a story where you're building a community with your characters. I am very interested to hear what you have to say, Christian, as well, because you haven't spoken about it. You're so I'm hoping that you're going to get away with not even saying anything.
I know, sorry. I'm a little quiet. I'm trying to work on that.
Real quick. Khalifa Aziz, the way you describe your narration as like a character, I'm really hoping that you will read a little bit of that to us, where it flows into that poetic stuff and then move. That sounds awesome. I'm
Yeah.
that sounds great. And yeah, Christian, I wanted to ask you, since you're in the middle of the writing process right now of your book, what is something that you're doing to sort of tap into creating interesting scenes for you? Is it more character based? Is it more action based? Is there a lot of world building? What have you been working on?
It's a lot of character interaction currently right now. The lore has been building for quite a long time. It's gone through different iterations, a lot of changes within the characters themselves, because I already kind of had an idea of what I wanted Grail to be. And when I say years, I think it's like 10 years. Like, I've been working on Grail and the lore for a long time. It's, just to summarize, it's dystopian. There is a cataclysmic event that has happened. This is the world rebuilding. The outside world is uninhabitable. We all live in biodomes. And there are, of course, the nicer domes and the domes that are not as nice. And the effects that the new world outside has had on humans, and that's where our mutants come in. And that has always kind of stayed the same. And so building that world was a little easier. It was just taking these characters that I've created and finding out how they're going to interact, how they build this family, how those who are not part of that family, what their impact is to my little group of very traumatized people. So a lot of when I start a scene is dialogue. How do they talk to each other? How does this individual person construct their sentences? How do they talk visually? Like, do they use their hands a lot? Do they just kind of sit there and use a lot of head movements? Do they gesture with their whole body? It starts there. I build the character in this scene, and then how does the next person that I have in the scene interact with that? And then the scene kind of builds itself around this character interaction more often than not. So
awesome. And with same thing I said to Khalifa Aziz a minute ago, we're looking forward to hearing from everybody to read. If you're up for it, we would love for each of you to read a scene or two of your works. That would be so wonderful.
That would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Now, here's the question. Who would like to go first? Feeling brave enough to have a go. Go on, Mark. Well done.
Yeah, Mark. All right. Let's do it.
All right. So to kind of introduce this, I'm going to read a scene from my most recent book, Street Retribution. And this is like one of my poignant scenes. I'm sure when Reese probably read it, she was like, oh my gosh. But so
why is he doing this to me right now?
Well, because you read the book. I have to put you on the spot. But so basically, this scene follows Edward Reed, who he just finished working, and he spends a night at the bar. Of course, he meets a female, and this is part of his norm. Meets a female, and the female gets attached to him. He's smooth, he's suave. I sort of got the Eddie Murphy Boomerang type when I'm describing Edward Reed, because he has the suit and stuff. So he attracted this lady. One thing leads to another. They get some drinks. They go back to his home. They do the do. They don't waste no time. And then, so I'm gonna read this scene. This is after they wake up. So, actually, I'm gonna read it in the middle of the action, because I think I don't know how. It doesn't get too descriptive. My love scenes, I kind of like to put a little intrigue in it. So, but it goes as follows.
hang on, before you start,
Oh.
what I'm going to do, Mark, I'm going to put you on the screen so it's just you, so you get to have, the whole presence there. Hang on a second.
Okay.
There we
All
go.
right. So here it goes. Guiding her into his bedroom, he softly placed her in bed as he licked her petite body down, causing her to moan uncontrollably. Her moans increased as his hands rubbed her clitoris with regularity, and after a few minutes, his mouth decided to go downtown. After a while, it was her turn, and Edward's eyes closed as he clenched his fists to prevent himself from busting too soon, as Jackie's mouth continued working its magic on his erected penis. Finally, he entered her and continued grinding in a rhythmic motion as her moans and his heavy panting filled the air. Fuck, don't stop. Keep going, Jackie yelled, as Edward grinded in and out willingly with a desire to satisfy his female counterpart. Then Jackie briefly surprised him by pushing him onto the bed and started mounting him. For about 5 minutes, she was riding him with every intention to make him explode. But it was Jackie who ended up exploding unexpectedly, and Edward felt her climax repeatedly. Finally, Edward could no longer hold on to his seat. He groaned loudly as he finished inside her. Sweating and breathing heavily, Jackie lay down on top of him. 2 more hours passed, and Jackie slept blissfully in Edward's arms. But Edward barely slept, and after a while he shifted Jackie over to the other side of the bed. Walking to the bathroom, he looked at himself in the mirror. Jackie was exactly what the doctor ordered after a stressful day at work, but Edward still felt uneasy. He hoped that he had not caused a feeling of infatuation to rise within Jackie because he did not wear a condom during sex, and he feared that she might one day be pregnant. He could not afford to be a father. The last thing he wanted to do was grow roots in the city, not while he was working and trying to keep a low profile. Looking at his right forearm, he saw the tattoo of the past that he worked so hard to bury. Bearing blood drops, dollar bills, and a gun emblem of MOB, Edward once again saw Antonio Franks. That's it.
Awesome.
Hang on. Sorry, I malfunctioned my end. 1 second.
So, how was that? Was that good? Did you like it?
The screen. There we go.
What did y'all think?
That was really good.
Wait, Adam, you're
amazing.
Look at Reese's face.
Because I read this already. Look, because I read this already, and I'm sitting there going, Lord, here we go.
I love a good sex scene.
Awesome. Listen, look, Mark knows about my stuff, but he has no idea how crazy it gets with these conversations. So yeah, we're all in. We're all for the spice every day.
But I think the most poignant part of what I read was when he, after it was done and she's sleeping on the bed, he goes to the mirror and he looks at the tattoo that reminds him of who he once was. Because you got to remember, he's trying to be a whole new person. But when he looks at the tattoo, man, I used to be a gang member. And I look at myself, I don't see a lawyer. I don't see an accomplished man. I see someone who's on a lower rung of life, someone who's scrapping, someone who has to survive, and someone who is used to performing acts of violence. This is who I used to be.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, imposter syndrome, exactly. So that's what I wanted to paint for the reader. It wasn't just the spicy scenes, and believe me, that I kind of let my imagination run with me. But it was the scene where he looked in a mirror and he saw another person. Sometimes we could look in a mirror and we don't know who we really are. Like who are we really? So that's why I wanted to read that scene, because I think that was like what set off what the chain of events throughout the book. So
I love mirrors. I love mirrors in books because you know that there's something reflective coming. And it's crazy because I don't even think we realize it as authors sometimes that we put things in place, just like Jules was saying, is something in your scene relevant or irrelevant? Sometimes the smallest thing can make the biggest impact on that particular scene because it draws you in and it puts you in that place and you're watching this person or you're seeing it through your own eyes. So I thought it was dope.
I know Reese's probably what she gonna do? What? Nah, I'll play.
I thought it was really interesting about the tattoo because tattoos are very personal and carry quite a lot of meaning for most people, and people have very strong opinions about them. You tend to have people who like tattoos and people who don't, and not very many in between. And so by having a tattoo that reminded the person of his past or actions that he had done or people that he had somehow hurt or injured along the way through his own journey through life must be a really painful reminder, and would either make him become hardened to his own emotions and shut them away because he can't show that, because that's not what you do, because that's what he's learned, or crumble into himself. And that was really interesting, the fact that he could have gone that either way. And it's I'm interested to find out how that happened.
And the thing is, because Edward was actually the reason why he had to reflect on himself was because he was a witness to a murder, or a so-called witness. He was actually at the scene of a crime where a young lady was murdered years ago, but he actually got away. But still, he was with the person that actually committed the crime. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was actually with the organization that did it. So even though he got away, he still feels guilt that he didn't stop whoever committed the murder. So that's why he's self-reflective, and that's why he's, man, who am I? I mean, here I am. I'm living this lifestyle. I thought I transformed, but really I didn't. In deep down, I might still be the same person. So.
Well, and I love the dichotomy of going from something very intimate to something very solo and personal. That was a cool transition. Also, that's a good point. That to have something, your readers are focused in one direction, and then suddenly you hit them with something else. That's good.
That's what keeps them guessing.
Yep.
That's what keeps them guessing. You got to keep them guessing.
I like the fact that when you've got a character that is quite deep and there's layers of ambiguity there in terms of whether he or she or they sort of in the good realm or the bad realm, or somewhere in between in that sort of grey realm where they do bad things but good things as well, and are they bad or are they really good? And it kind of keeps the reader really chugging along with what the characters like, because no one is purely good and no one is purely evil. So
and at the beginning, people don't know if Edward is good or bad at the beginning of the book. They just know him as a lawyer. They just know him as a businessman, really. So I wanted to kind of put the reader in a place where they have to kind of figure out, the only way they can figure out is if they keep reading. So really, I want to keep them engaged and say, okay, keep reading and find out if he's good or if he's, if there's some darkness to him. So
that's a real juxtaposition, because sorry, so go on, Khalif. Go on.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, what I really, so of course not having read the book, but like I remember while you were reading your main character thinking about his tattoo, my first thought was she would have seen the tattoo. If they're having sex, if they're naked, she would have seen the tattoo, and we don't get her respect. And I thought that was good, because now it makes me think, well, he's thinking all this about himself. Does she think that way? My first immediate reaction would be, well, probably not, because if she did, she would have seen the tattoo, possibly recognized it, and said something. And so, I'm thinking, like, while he's looking at this mirror, thinking all this stuff about him, I'm thinking, not, dude, you're being ridiculous, but again, I'm seeing the imposter syndrome, despite knowing nothing about these characters. Just the simple fact that there was a tattoo that she would have seen. And she still agreed to have sex with him. She still agrees to associate with him. Whereas he's thinking, oh man, I'm a horrible person. She's like, hey, I just had sex. Yay.
Well, the thing, and that's a good point. But the thing is, it's about the significance of the tattoo. So to her, it was like, okay, it's just a tattoo. And, people thought, I have sex with men with tattoos every day. So it wasn't a big thing to her. But to him, he knows what the significance of the tattoo is.
Oh, so she doesn't know it's a gang tattoo? Okay.
She doesn't know the significance. So to her, it was probably just another, just a random tattoo. But the tattoo that had a significance because it's supposed to mark the gang that he was part of, you know?
Mhm.
So when people who are not part of that association or that gang syndicate, when they look at that tattoo, it's not any different from other people who had tattoos and things like that. They don't, you know, but to him, he knows the significance. So he that's why she don't ask any questions about it, you know. So, but he questions himself. So that's the thing. So that's why I want, you know, and that's true. She could have asked, but sometimes when you into it, you know, it's the bliss is so much.
Second thought.
Second thought, exactly.
And if you're used to seeing something, if you're used to seeing tattoos, you wouldn't have just glanced at it and gone passing. Oh, he's got a tattoo also, just like everybody else. My friends have tattoos.
Right. So you know, it didn't matter to her, you know, but it mattered to him, you know, because he's been trying to change himself. So
leave that behind. Yeah.
The juxtaposition of the fact that he's a lawyer and also was in a gang. You know, normally when you mention the term gang, it conjures up in people's mind, you know, a particular type of gang and gang ethics and that kind of thing. But then also lawyer triggers the same sort of thing where you've got, I don't know, like Suits, for example, the TV show, where you've got them being ruthless with their clients and also the people who they're fighting against. They're actually like two sides of the same coin to a certain extent. You know, there's still almost like that sort of social.
That's a good comparison. That's a good comparison. That's very good.
That's my take on it. Anyway.
Well, that's good because that's a very good take because basically leaving one gang to join another, and he's part of a lawyer group too. Like he's part of that group, and basically the reason why he did it is because he wants to be the person to throw people behind bars, and he was inspired by someone who actually helped him out, who was a lawyer back when he was a kid, when he was involved in a gang. So he was inspired by the person who helped him, and that's what encouraged him to become a lawyer himself. You know, he went to college, studied in law school, did all of that. And if you read the book, I do a lot of flashback writing too. So I flashed right back to his younger years where he didn't care about school really. He was just about hanging out with his crew, hanging out with the hood, you know, all those dudes. So he really didn't care about school back then. But, you know, he evolved as he grew, you know. But sometimes the people in your community, they don't like evolution and they don't react well to change. And then when they see you change, they'll do anything to eliminate that change. They'll do anything to keep you uninspired, to keep you down at their level. You see what I'm saying? So that's what Edward goes through. So he's dealing with maybe a crisis of sorts. You know, like he's not being loyal to the hood, but what am I being loyal to if I'm trying to escape that lifestyle? All right, I just want to live my life and do me. But that's where the book kind of goes. That's where the reader goes into my journey, my little wormhole, as I like to call it. So, and Reese has probably been down in it, so she knows.
And it will take you up and down and around in circles. You're gonna probably sit there in the middle of the book and go, you know what? Let me go back because I missed something somewhere. I missed something somewhere. I'm going back and let me come back to this point.
Thank you, Mark. Would you like to just remind everyone, like the name of your book? I have posted into the comments where they can get it from, but just remind everyone as well. And Bob, just put you on the screen again so people can actually see. Hang on 1 second. There we go.
All right. So my book is Street Retribution. You see it?
Yep, we got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Perfect.
So the title is Street Retribution. And like I said, it's actually a continuation of the first two books I've written in my series, which is actually called the Black Cyrano series. So I named it that because there's a lot of characters that I use from those first two books that are. So you can find it in Amazon or Barnes & Noble online, or even the publisher website, which is totalrecallpress.org. But I would recommend going to Amazon or barnesandnoble.com to purchase the book.
Okay. Awesome.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much. I got the right button this time. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you so
I
much.
posted the links in chat too. So
Okay.
Oh yes, perfect. And I posted them
I
up on
posted the links in
the
chat.
live comments. Wonderful. I'll repost that for you in a moment. Okay, so who would like to go next? Genuinely don't mind. You can volunteer or I'll select someone.
I'll go.
Well done, Zoe. Oh, well done, Christian. Go on, Zoe, but you can go next as you were first then. So what I'll do is I'll pop you on the screen. You can tell us a little bit about your book, read a bit from what you've got, and then we can have a chat about it afterwards. All right? Off you go.
Oh, Zoe, make sure you unmute yourself.
Ooh, look at me.
There we go.
Something new on
Perfect.
technology. I am not a tech person. Right. So I'm currently writing my latest novel, which is called The Writhing, which is based on a short story I wrote called Writhing Mind. Basically, I'm very influenced by Lovecraft. I absolutely adore the realms of horror and madness and something beyond and something kind of corrupting one's mental space. But I'm also very much into teratophilia, so I have a real thing for tentacles. So I am combining my worlds of a cosmic horror of the like falling into madness of something otherworldly, but also this otherworldly thing being a semi-erotic experience. But is that also rather bad for the human condition? And I've centered this around the gay community because that is the community I am part of. So all my characters are queer. I've only got a very small bit to read because I'm not very confident reading out loud. The dyslexic in me is, but hopefully this little thing will kind of set a bit of the scene. Once home, and by the time the pizza had been cooked, he was more preoccupied with the round cardboard base that it came with than the food itself. He ate a piece of the pizza begrudgingly and left the rest in the fridge for tomorrow, losing its circular form and putting him off eating the rest of it. Dinner became a packet of crisps that was comprised of round discs. Tomorrow he would have to go to work. Through the headache and the near consistent sound of his heartbeat and made that prospect less enticing. He was almost out of drawing paper, which was necessary. Putting down his circles, admitting defeat for now, he walked to his bed. Despite having done the laundry, he had not remade the bed, and for a moment he admired the even spread of perfectly round circles that were on the mattress, before falling on top of it and again being pulled into sleep. The tendrils were closer than before. He felt them slither up his ankles, smooth and slightly warm. He noticed that some were not smooth all the way round, as he had thought, but had a puckered ridge that ran the whole length. He could not get a complete sense of them, as they only reached his calf, but he was almost certain that their caress also included a light sucking sensation around his flesh. Soon that distant beat began to rise as the cosmic dance echoed just out of view. But he was determined to capture the sight of those perfect circles in his mind, their otherworldly colours and perfect symmetry, how they made patterns of such measured perfection. He felt it needed to be a mathematician to capture the scope of the geometric perfection. He woke with his heart still thumping out a strange rhythm, and with what felt like an itch just below the skin of his skull. Something was scratching at his thoughts, an idea, a realization trying to make itself known. Not bothering to change out of his clothes, and without even a glance at breakfast, he grabbed what was needed for work and headed out into the early morning.
Yay!
That was awesome.
I love how we suddenly dove into tentacles and monsters as soon as he fell asleep. That was great. I didn't see that coming, and it was wonderful.
Well, because Lovecraft has inspired a significant amount of art and other creative sort of aspects like statues and sculptures and stories. What drew you to Lovecraft?
Oh, there's so much I love about it. He kind of has like two camps, the idea of madness and that breakdown of one's humanity, and that almost sense of like, is it reality? Is it not reality? Are the pressures of society kind of destroying you? Is your interaction with society destroying you? The outsider, the inability to connect, and like that kind of like mental headspace. But then you also couple of it with this entire lore that there is something else out there subtly infecting and brainwashing and getting your reverence for it, but that's also damn creepy, and you just can't fathom exactly what like an eldritch horror could be. And also in some ways, like for me personally, because of my kinks, the whole like otherworldly monstrous form is quite attractive. So there's like a darkness in the sexuality and the sensuality of otherworldly monstrous beings, and you combine it all together and you get this wonderful like horror versus like unnatural like interests, and like yeah, I get very absorbed by all the like various worlds and creations that Lovecraft has inspired.
Yeah, I am. Cthulhu certainly was a big inspiration to quite a lot of dark fantasy authors and horror fantasy, just because of that sort of like underpinning dread, but that uneasy feeling of whether there's reality happening or not, and being stuck in this netherworld and unable to escape. And there's been quite a lot of like urban legends that have sort of sprung up from Lovecraft sort of themes as well, which is quite interesting. What I've so many questions, but I don't want to hog this. Like, this is obviously your book, but it's really interesting that you've the process that you go through, where you have the image of the character in your mind first and then you write it. So how do you kind of marry that up with the scene that you're doing?
It all kind of works so naturally in my brain pattern. So like my actual short story was like illustrated. So like the scene I just read, I've got to remember where my camera is. It's like, so I basically draw out some of like little scenes pop into my head, like. And the very much the theme of this one is this invasion of circles. He gets like, he's obsessed with the base of the pizza because it's circular. But by the time he starts eating the pizza, he's like, this is not a perfect circle anymore. I can't be obsessed with it. I don't want it. And so I was drawing circles, and I've got, so like, it's almost like the madness came through me. And once I'd got a couple of like these visions down, then the character, who's an unnamed character in the short story, tells me how they like came to it, how it affected them. It's all very visual. I almost see it like film, like mise en scène. So it's almost like part script writing. Like first drafts are always just like, here's the storyboard almost. Then like, okay, right, let's add like exactly what's happening, and then kind of like flesh out a little bit more of like the world building around it.
Sounds like you've got a really organized method. It's pretty. Sorry, I was just going to say, it seems like you've got a really organized method. That's wild.
I was going to say as well that I think that sort of the mainstream authors that I've sort of heard and seen and read about, they very much have a very opposite perspective on how to write, and there should be a particular way you do it, and organizing it in a particular way, and everything else. And from not just from today, but from all the podcasts that we've done, that's not the experience of any of the authors that we've had on here. Every author that we've had on here has had a really unique, intimate relationship with their characters, which have led them in some way or another. And although we're all completely aware that they all come from us anyway, they do become otherworldly entities. And so the way that you're describing it, and the way that Khalif described it as well, in terms of the fact that characters talk to him, I think it really kind of comes away from the sort of the mainstream way of doing it, and I think that should be really embraced. So so says I. Thank you for sharing that. That was really good. Does anyone have any questions they wanted to ask?
I just had a comment. I was in the room with you, Zoe. Like, seriously, with this particular character, I'm literally feeling these tentacles crawling up my leg while I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm like, oh my god, what is happening right now?
I kind of like this. What's going on here?
Giving inspiration for Adam for his second book to do with his first novel that he wrote.
New character.
Yeah. Did you want to? I'm just going to put you on the big screen again, just for the last time, Zoe. So you can just share the information about your book again. I have put it on the chat as well, and I also put it up on the screen. But if you want to just share with us again where we can get it from, the title of your book.
So the short story is Writhing Mind. Best place to go is I've got all the links on my Twitter, which is at Let Zoe Spoil You. Sorry, I'm saying too much. There's artwork that goes along with it, as you can see, which you will find on my New Monday account. But if you go via my Twitter, I have all the links to all my projects, all under my pinned tweet. And then you can find all the various things that I do.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and be sure to go and check that out. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much, Zoe. Okay. So, Christian, as you are the next volunteer, would you like to...
Yeah.
Put you on the big screen.
Okay, so before I read this passage, just a little bit of context. I am a reconnecting Indigenous person. I am Mexican. I am also Raramuri, which is an Indigenous group in Mexico, as well as Maricopa from the United States Southwest. And for some background on that, I have had a very disconnected relationship with my Indigenous self growing up. We knew what we were, but we weren't raised within the culture. And with the new movement to be more welcoming and more inclusive to reconnecting Natives, I have a lot of different references to that in my writing, as well as some very personal feelings that my main character, Eve, experiences that are things that I have experienced. And in this scene between her and her brother Adam, they are seeing each other for the first time in many years. They grew up together within their laboratory that they were taken from their families and placed into. And this is them reconnecting for the first time in many years. So it's pretty emotional. Here we go. Eve listened, waiting for their footsteps to retreat before looking around the room. It was exactly as she remembered it. A bed with a small shelf beside it, a small table with chairs, all still in the same place, as though time had stood still since she last left. Something new she'd noticed was the collection of artwork. Dozens of pictures drawn by small hands covered the wall facing the bed. They won't end up in any galleries, but I like them anyway. A whisper of a voice drew Eve's attention. The room's occupant was awake and sitting up in the bed watching her. Eve couldn't help staring back. A brown-skinned child with large eyes flashed through her mind. This young man's dark green hair was longer than she remembered, but his face had lost its baby fat. But she knew Adam instantly. I knew it was you. The doctor called for us to be put into lockdown procedure, and I knew it had to be because you'd come back. Eve began to walk over to where he sat as Adam spoke, his breathing starting to catch. "And when you entered the building, I could feel it." He broke off with a choked gasp as Eve's arms wrapped around him, drawing him to her. They were both crying now, holding tight to each other. Their respective cirrus, which are cool little appendages that they have that are controlled by themselves, little input on that, began to twine around each other. Adam's cirrus resembled silken rope and was the same pine needle green as his hair and eyes. "My little brother," Eve laughed weakly as she ran a hand through the young man's hair, pulling back to look at Adam properly. Well, maybe not so little now. His green eyes looked large for his face, but Adam had grown into the rest of his features and lost the gangly build of his younger years. He wore his hair in a loose ponytail that reached mid-back, and some of the strands had fallen around his face. He hadn't grown much taller. Eve still had almost half a head on him, but he gained a bit more muscle in his arms and legs. It was both comforting and strange that he hadn't changed more. 8 years was a long time, and Eve had almost expected a more drastic change in Adam. She smiled tearily at him. "No, definitely still little," Eve joked, and Adam pinched her side, a smile breaking across his face. Both of them took a moment to wipe their eyes, and with some tissues Adam had grabbed. The pair shifted to sit on the bed. The pair shifted to sit at the head of the bed and cuddled into one another. As Eve tucked her legs close, she could feel Adam's eyes on her. "You've barely changed," she murmured, "like the last time I saw you." As he looked at Eve, she could tell the young man had noticed marks on her face and neck, reaching out to touch her jawline. Eve touched his hands, and he saw even more marks on her wrists to her fingers. And I'm going to stop there because I want people to read more.
Yay, thank you so much for reading.
Yeah.
That's a cool place to stop as well. Definitely leaves more. Hang on. Sorry, I'm trying to do the right buttons.
Oh, no worries.
So we've got Adam and Eve.
Yes.
I see what you did right there.
I didn't see it while you were reading. I'll admit I didn't even see it.
Adam and Eve, I got it.
Yeah. Along with all of the indigenous influences and all of that, I have a lot of religious trauma. So a lot of this is not only the reconnecting indigenous and wanting to bring that to the forefront. It's also a kind of outlet for that trauma. There's a lot of that interpieced. A lot of characters that have biblical names. Grail in and of itself. After the Holy Grail, there are a lot of
noticed that too.
Little bits and pieces. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about the special appendage that they have?
Yes, the cirrus.
Right?
Those were very inspired by an anime and manga called Elven Laid, where they have they're called vectors there, and they are extra appendages. And for the cirrus, I wanted them to be those extra appendages, but for each new human, as the mutants are called, NU human, I wanted them each to be specialized for each character. As I described, Adam's, his are like silken rope, and they have a strength to them, they have a force to them. Eve's, which I did not go into, hers are like ribbons, so they can be sharp, they can cut through things, they can widen, they can narrow. They each have their strengths, and that reflects in their cirrus.
How big are the appendages?
However long or wide they wish. There's a lot of freedom there. So there is a scene that is in book 2, Grail is a duology, where Adam makes his ropes large so he can use them as kind of a like a flail almost to burst through a wall.
Wow.
But also,
Nice.
yeah,
Where do they come
there's a
out
little
of?
bit of action in there.
That's cool.
But also he can make them small to play cat's cradle. So there's very much a however much energy they want to expend is what they can do.
That's really cool. That's really imaginative. I would never have thought of or even when we were talking about tentacles with Zoe's work, that never even crossed my mind that you could do what you've just been describing. It opened my mind to a whole range of possibilities of tentacles.
Yeah. Where do the extra limbs come out? How do they extend from the bodies?
So it's different for each person. Again, very personalized. Eve's come from the small of her back, almost where a like an OB ribbon or OB belt would be, where the bow would be in the back. That's kind of where hers would come. I use the term unfurl because they do kind of unfurl out. And for Adam, his are his upper back. So what they will do is they will kind of just, they don't manifest per se. I believe there is like a kind of nigh impossible or invisible slit opening, for lack of a better word, where they kind of unfurl out and they can be retracted back in. I have another character where theirs is at the base of their neck. So while they wear a stealth suit and stuff like that, there is a gap between the helmet and the neck of the suit to enable their cirrus to be used.
Wow.
Cool.
See, I'm visualizing all of this. I'm like, yo,
it's so cinematic.
I'm not trying to see it. Yeah, I'm trying to see it. But yo, that idea is dope, though. I mean, that is like, no doubt.
Is there a reason why they're in different places on their back? Is there like something that's like genetic thing or some mutation thing that means that they come out differently, or is it something else?
No, I just chalked it up to it's each person is different. Their cirrus is different. They're like a person's hair or
you were creative with it. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Just very individualized. Because I figured while they are mutants, there is a gene that makes them the way that they are. There's still going to be that variety in how these characteristics manifest per person.
I take a sense of like gene splicing. Like when I think about that, I'm thinking like, you know, gene splicing, like when they, you know, different genes, and then with the mutant abilities, it just creates like that's what my mind is thinking. I'm like, wow. I mean, that's crazy. It's like when you think about that, you know, because everyone's, like you said, everyone's different. So I guess depending on where your gene pool is at, you know, they can come out from different areas. So, you know, I just think that takes a lot of creativity, though.
The creativity is off the chain.
Yeah, that takes a lot of creativity.
Yeah. I'm getting both Zoe and you, Christian, have just got some really amazing sort of like artistic spark in terms of how you're designing your characters. You know, and I completely agree. It's so creative what you've done. And it really brings to mind, there's certain like computer games like Dark Souls as well, which have elements of that in it as well, which is sort of bringing back memories for me. So that's a compliment, by the way.
One of my author friends who inspired me to write is very big into Souls games. So I can definitely see the comparison with some of those aspects.
Yeah, it's, and actually that those types of games have the most, I would say, the most sort of creative part of it where you've got characters that look completely different to a human. But there's aspects of them that make them non-human, like in one way or another. So yeah, it's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Did you want to just sort of spend a moment? I'll put you on the screen again so you can just tell people again where they can get your book, and when you're going to be
ready.
The point when
we're ready.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I definitely might have to cop a copy of that.
Oh yeah, for real, for sure.
So as I mentioned before, still writing, still working on it. First draft is not quite ready. Shout out to my beta readers, which are my wife and my roommates. They have done a lot in supporting me through this process, and I couldn't have done it without them. But I am on Twitter, CMS Queer Lit, and my first chapter in its entirety is actually available on there. I have links on my Twitter to be read. I'm open to constructive criticism, comments, all of that jazz. I have my email listed there too. The Twitter is where I update all of my stuff author-wise. So please give it a look. And I'm really excited to continue writing and to really mold Grail and then release it into the world.
We're very excited for that too.
Yes.
It's a pleasure having you on. So thank you so much. So now we turn to our last guest, but not least at all. So Cliff, I'm going to turn it over to you. Here we go.
Thank you. Yeah. So, so as I said before, this is a sample chapter from my upcoming novel. Specifically, this is chapter, I think it comes out to about chapter 8. The first book is about a new student at this magical school, Marquise Blood. He is what's known as a nouveau woke, which means he did not know about magic or the Negro spirit before he was recruited to the school. This chapter takes place on his second day on campus. He's just met his roommate and his roommate's best friend, Renee, and his roommate, Jerome, calls them up and says, hey, let's sneak into the graduating students' secret party that they have at the beginning of each summer semester. And so that is where that's where the sample chapter takes place. It takes place during this party that these kids sneak into, and this is where Marquise sees magic performed, basically for the first real time. A blinding light show and cacophony of sounds backhanded Marquise the moment he pulled up to the scene. The bodies on the floor writhed, glided, bounced, and spun with a dazzling, fantastic Christmas-like display that made the young boy's head throb. Shouts from the partiers and wails from the music rang through Marquise's ears and created a dizzying display of sharp colors in his mind. 9 times from 10, Marquise would have backed away from the horror with his hands over his ears and his mouth making sounds it hadn't since he was a baby in diapers. But Marquise didn't shy away from the horror, and the strain the stimulation had on his mind was minimal. Waves of sound rose and fell all around him, and the halos surrounding everyone were more intense than any Marquise had ever seen in his whole life. But it didn't deter him. He loved every second of it. The loud, obnoxious, ignorant mood reverberated in the very core of his being and exited the child that was still trapped within his mind. Jerome had been right. Marquise had never seen anything like a Negro spiritual party before, and as he watched the lights floating off everyone's bodies, Marquise realized that he'd probably never seen anything nearly as spectacular as the magic at work there. Marquise gasped as his eyes continued to follow the lines of everyone's halos. Orange, purple, green, blue, red, yellow. It was all blending and creating a dizzying display that mixed with the very air itself. The longer he looked, the more the air glowed in a spectacular, ever-shifting multi-chrome. It was a new sight for Marquise, and just like with the partiers themselves, Marquise was too transfixed by his wonder to look away and shield his already sensitive brain. Those lights, what are they? He found himself asking. Soon as the words were out of his mouth, though, he wished it would show itself shut. That was the second time that day Marquise had asked about the mysterious lights without first confirming anyone else could see them. If Jerome and Renee started asking too many questions, they might begin to suspect there was something off about him. Renee said. Funk, Jerome clarified. Renee made a big display of shrugging. Same thing. Neither sounds very good, Marquise confessed. Internally, he breathed a sigh of relief. He was slipping, and he didn't like that, but he was happy that somebody was looking down his stupid ass, making sure that no one else learned how crazy he was. It's energy mixed with sweat, Jerome clarified again. Yeah, you're seriously making me want to leave and shower, Marquise responded with a questionable sniff of the air. It wasn't too bad, but he could definitely smell the sweat, funk, whatever it was supposed to be. Nouveau works, I swear, Jerome sighed. You gotta admit, Renee began, it's a pretty gross concept even in context. It's residual psychic energy mixing with sweat and breath, then evaporating into the air. After that, it's absorbed by our bodies, refined, and shot out again, and again, and again, and again. What you call disgusting? I call a psychedelic water cycle, Jerome said with a shrug. So we're basically breathing in magic sweat. That totally makes it all better, Marquise sarcastically added. And I don't want to go too long, so that's basically it. That's just me, setting the initial scene of the party and the magic at work there. Yeah.
That was amazing, and we have a regular viewer, Harmony, on YouTube, who is blown away by the creativity of today's performances by the four of you readers. Amazing. Yeah, she said the range of creativity is amazing. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah,
yeah, I'll show you that.
What you just came up with, what you just shared with us is nothing I've ever heard of before. That was awesome. So creative.
Yeah, I think that's it based off.
Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, so I was so the funk is a concept that I kind of based off of the idea of like the atmosphere of a party, but also one time I was talking to my mom and I just point out like how weird it was that we call the genre funk music. And then she came up with this thing. I have no idea if this is true or not. It's because the people who played funk in the early days would play for so long that they started to sweat, and they were in these very tight, closed spaces, and they were playing, they were sweating, they were dancing, and it would cause a scent that permeated through the very tight room. And I'm like, that sounds horrible. I have no idea how true this is, but yeah, like when I was coming up with, trying to really capture like a very, like Black, like culturally informed magical system, I'm like, okay, like what is going to like really set this apart from anything else? And I'm like, oh wait, yeah, make the funk something magical. And so that's what I did there.
I love the inspiration. Amazing. Yep.
It's very unique. I'm really loving. I mean, yeah, I think the range of creativity that you all have is just amazing, and I think we should own that, and take stock in the fact that we are. So I'm telling you off again, Mark.
It's all good.
In a nice way, take stock of that, and I think it's amazing. I think it's really interesting as well that we all draw from our own experiences when we write, and our culture too. And I think that's really important that gets embedded somehow, somewhere. And I think also
good deliveries, everybody. You all read beautifully, also, and I noticed. I can't remember. Somebody rolled their eyes at one point while reading, like actually adding some acting into your performance. It was really good. It was really good today. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and reading in this format can be quite daunting and quite a scary experience. And so, I thank you so much. Now, I just want to sort of go back a little bit to sort of theme that we're talking about today, if that's possible. In terms of, and this is open to all of you, including Reese and Adam, when you're writing a scene, what takes precedence? Is it what the character is wanting you to do, what the reader's expecting or not expecting, or something different?
Ooh.
I suppose that
For me, it depends on if it's like an action scene. Like if it's like action, then okay, you know what? Just start with the action, If there's an atmosphere, then I start with the atmosphere of the scene. And quite often, for delinquents, that's what I did the most. I started with the feeling of where they were. First chapter of the first book starts in the middle of a fight, then there's another chapter that starts off in the middle of a fight, and like just starting off with the atmosphere first, and then leading into that. But then, of course, where the characters take over is when it's more of those like in between moments, like in between plot points where you kind of have to focus more on the characters in order to keep people engaged, and you're like, okay, how does this character get to like, I don't know, this locked door? Well, we have to lead them there. And while you're trying to lead them there, the characters are like, yes, we're walking. Oh, what's that over there? Yeah.
I really love that, because that actually is very different to what Zoe was describing when she does her one, where the image of the character comes into her mind first, and then it kind of creates from there. So I love the fact that it's just such a different way of creating. What about you, Mark or Christian? How do you do yours?
I mean, I think mine is a little similar to, I think mine is a little similar to Khalifa Faziz's, where we're going with the atmosphere, and then the characters kind of take, I don't want to say second stage, but they are kind of the second stage in that building that scene. And while I like to start with the dialogue, it's the atmosphere that this dialogue or that the creators or characters are creating that I think really is going to get you and the reader there.
Yeah.
And sometimes the atmosphere helps lead where your dialogue actually ends up going also. Yeah.
True.
That's a good point, Adam. Yeah, very good point. What about you, Mark?
I'm sorry. Can you reword the question again? I heard the responses, but I wasn't. I didn't hear the actual whole question in its entirety.
That's okay.
Because I was answering Harmony's. Yeah, I was answering Harmony's question on the general chat. She wanted to know my social media links, so I was posting my social media links.
Cool.
So that's what I was doing. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
So,
No, don't worry. It's fine.
yeah.
I'm happy to ask again.
Yeah.
It's more, I suppose it's more curiosity, because everyone writes differently. So I normally press Reese and Adam quite substantially in terms of how they do it, and then nab their ideas when I'm like, oh, I could do that. Particularly with the editing, which Adam's taught me a lot. But in terms of like when you're writing a scene, do you, how do you start it? What's your starting point? Is it like what the characters are doing, what you think is going to happen, how the reader's going to read it, what emotions are going on, or it's basically how do you kind of center the scene? What's your process in going through a scene?
Well, because my books are like consecutive, so that means like a previous scene leads to another scene. So I base on what I wrote about last, and then I sort of, it allows me to think about what the next scene is going to be. Okay, so this happened. How is this person going to respond to it? Or how is this scene going to unfold into the next scene? How is the character going to respond to it? So that's what makes again, going back to the community thing, that's what makes it easy for me to write, because I'm able to create reactions off of what happened previously, And if I'm starting let's say I'm starting a brand new book without no connections to the previous scene. So what I do is, okay, where is this character going to get his wake-up moment? Where is he going to first encounter a point of conflict? And then after that, how is he going to deal with that conflict? and what products around him in his environment help shape him moving forward. So I gotta put different factors around that character and then develop it from there. So that's how you do it. So if you're creating something new, you want to have a starting point, and then you want to just develop it. And then when you develop it, you add on to it. So that's been my formula.
Mark, do you do you architect, or are you more of a pantser? Do you plan out your chapters in advance, like will you know what you're going to have them do, or is it more like
it's funny because
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I do. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I do plan them out. I used to actually outline each chapter when I first started writing. Like I used to outline on the paper, like what I want each chapter to be about, and I just expound it. But, and I'm not bragging here, I think I've evolved to the point where I stop outlining it physically and I just start outlining it here.
That's cool.
Now it's gotten to the point where I could see the story and I could see how I want it to be. And sometimes I could have visions, dreams, and then I wake up at 5 a.m. I'm like, okay, yep, I gotta go ahead.
When the muse strikes, you obey.
When the muse strikes.
Yeah. When the muse strikes. Exactly. So that's how it normally unfolds for me. I used to outline on paper, but I've gotten to the point where I could see the stories. I don't need to outline on paper anymore. All of a sudden, I could see the scene, and then I could just formulate it. And sometimes when I write it on paper, I be getting so upset about how it turns out. So there's been a lot of delete and backspace, in the past. Like, oh man, no, that's not how I want it to go. So
I can imagine what your waste paper basket would look like in the middle of one of those episodes. You know what?
Oh yeah, like yeah.
It's what I'm hearing is everyone has a unique interaction and relationship with the characters and the process that they write with, and they write in a way that works best for the way their brain is working. And I love that uniqueness about it. I'm going to ask
sorry, go ahead.
Right, there, go on.
I was going to say our ability to use it as cathartic and therapeutic to deal with our own issues that we've gone through ourselves, to get it out of our systems and write about it, talk about it, allow other people to relate to it.
Absolutely.
It's a very unique and individual process, writing.
It is. I've got a friend who's an author, and they've read my ones, and there's scenes in my ones which she found really difficult to read. There's nothing graphic in it, but there's assaults and abuse, and it triggers issues that people have experienced. And one of the comments that she said was, is it relevant? Do you actually need to have those specific things happen? And my answer was, I need to break my character. I have to break her because it's the only way she can move forward. It's a very powerful tool. I find lots of authors write their books, they put them out into the public domain, and it's quite a vulnerable period, I think, for an author when they very first do it, because you're almost inviting that feedback from people and that sort of scrutiny. But what you weave into your story, no one really understands what's actually happened to you or hasn't happened to you, because it's completely changed in the way it's been written. But it's still a vulnerable process. I think to be an author, you have to have some element of courage and tenacity and strength.
Can I add something to that, Ms. Jules? What I would recommend to any reader in the panel, whether you're about to release your first book or your first written work, write scene by scene, not chapter by chapter. What I mean by that is when you write scene by scene, you're not putting pressure on yourself to have to finish a chapter, because when you put it, that's what I've been doing. I've been writing scene by scene. Like, okay, this scene is done. I take some time, and then I allow the next scene to unfold, and then boom, I'm back at it again. So
That's
believe me,
amazing.
when you give yourself time and you pause in between, the story's going to unfold a whole lot better. Believe me.
That is really, really useful advice. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree, and I would add to that not being rigid. I initially I had chapters that I thought this is too short, this doesn't work, and ended up going with 2 paragraphs, and it totally made sense. Yeah.
Listen, I'm with you on that one, Adam, because I don't have.
It's so small, I can't even.
There's no specific flow. There's no specific flow within my chapters.
Yeah.
Some of them are
1 chapter right there.
Yeah.
The next chapter starts right there. Yeah.
There you go.
And I've got some that start. They're 3-4 pages.
Scene.
Then I have one that's 8. I mean, it just depends. You're right. It depends on how long
the
scene is going.
It's about how long the scene is and about how effective it is too.
Mm-hmm.
So if the scene is effective, if it's poignant, length doesn't matter. I mean, the thing is, it's about how the reader takes it, how he perceives it or she perceives it, and then it's going to be effective all the same. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I've been taking it, and that's why I give my advice to other authors. If you break it down scene by scene, the story is just going to unfold, and then before you know it, you may be inspired to write another scene and then another scene, and then so that's been my approach, and I've been doing it. And I've been writing early in the mornings too. I used to be a late night bird, but I can't do it no more. Now, I gotta wake up early in the morning because and I'm not on my phone. I'm not on social media. I put everything down, and then because I create better that way. That's my process. So
all of my chapters have a cliffhanger at the end of them. So what I do is I write my scene, and then when it reaches a point where it's a cliffhanger, I stop the chapter. And then the next chapter then goes on. Yeah. So it kind of leads you into the next one.
I do that too. On my other books, I do that too. Yeah, I be leaving my chapters, and my readers be getting so mad at me. They're like, Mark, why don't you end it like this? Like, what's going on? Like, Mark, this woman who's reading my book at her job, one of my sports novels, she's mad because I broke a couple up. And then she doesn't want the couple to get back together. I didn't tell her that they were going to get back together, but because I gradually, but she keeps saying, I don't want them to get back together. You got to keep reading because we don't know what's going to happen. So I let her on a little bit. It was so funny.
That's funny.
But you know what? Yeah. But that's what you got to do. You got to leave them. It feels
so good when somebody has connected to your character and reaches out and is like, I'm mad at you for doing this, or what? You better not kill this character off. That always makes me happy. Yeah.
Jasmine, listen, because Jasmine has gotten some hate mail. Let me put it that way.
You've hitting the nerve, and I'm still mad about you about Jasmine too. I've actually messaged Reese about that. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But Jasmine got some hate mail, specifically about the last scene in the book because I have, but I didn't leave anybody hanging because the beginning of book 2, you get to find out all of the details of what happened in the last chapters.
Reveal.
So I didn't just leave you.
Man,
I didn't leave you out to the wolves.
It kills me that I gotta wait though. It kills me that I gotta wait, and you ended it like that.
This is gonna be me when I finish book 1.
Exactly.
I was looking at. I was like, "Yo,
where's the next page?"
Everybody gets to that last page, and they're like, "What?" My aunt literally called me. She was in like the last 10 chapters, and she's like, "What's gonna happen in this chapter?" And I'm like, "No, you have to read it." So she reads a chapter, then she sends me a text message. Then she reads another chapter, and then she calls me. I can't believe no. Well, let me call you back when I finish. And she hangs up. Then she calls me back an hour later. So at the end of the book, she calls me back and she goes, "I'm so upset with you right now." I'm upset.
And Jasmine was growing on me too,
but I don't.
I like Jasmine.
Everybody.
I love Jasmine.
I like her.
I tell you one thing, you do get a chance to see a lot more of her vulnerability in the new book, which is why I was sitting in here in tears in the dark writing the chapters the other day. I'm like, why are you doing this to me, Jasmine? Don't do this to me right now. But yeah, it's
hey, there's a character in my book too. There's a character in my new book that I'm currently writing. You're gonna see his vulnerability too. Yeah, and it's gonna be the character that you least expect.
It does give you.
Listen,
Yeah, all the
I
time.
read.
Everybody
and
got a
watched-
soul.
Oh yeah,
Exactly. That's true.
Listen, I watched and read Rambo, and I'm like, oh my god, that guy, he's hurting so much inside, and my husband's just like,
He's a psychopath. What are you talking about?
yeah, and I'm like, yeah, but he's doing it because he feels like this, and you put the poor man, and he must be so sad that no one wants him, and blah blah blah. And my husband's just like, my old husband was in the army for 22 years, and he was just like, okay, Jules. So yeah, no, I really empathize with Jasmine. I like her. She's a good character. All right. I think we've come to a nice happy end. I think that I've had a really good time listening to all of your reads, and your feedback and your input has been amazing. I think it's been really helpful, and there's been at least one thing that people can take away that will help them with their writing process, or even when they're reading a book and they want to sort of understand the book at a deeper level, and sort of get into the author's head, so to speak, in terms of how they write. So, thank you so much. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all four of our lovely guests today. Mark, Khalifa's, Zoe and Christian, you've just been amazing. And it's been such fun having you on. We would love for you to be a returning guest if you have us. Because it's just having guests who come on more than once, it's just such a nice platform, and I hope you found us welcoming and really engaging, and also we'd love you to join our Discord as well, which Adam will send the invitation.
Yeah, Zoe and Christian, I'll send you the links, and Reese, you can send Mark and Khalif the links. That'd be awesome.
Definitely. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll explain a little bit about that. So it's a Discord service specifically for authors, writers, poets, and beta readers, and no one else. So if you're a writer and you write songs, as in like the lyrics and stuff, then you're also welcome. But it's a safe platform for people to just to share their ideas and sort of have a supporting area
all related around writing. Yeah,
and everyone's lovely, so there's no nastiness or horribleness on there at all. It's just a nice group.
It's mostly just people we've had on this lovely show. Yeah,
exactly.
It's small, but it's building, and that's the whole purpose of that, and also the purpose of this, that we are literally just slowly building a community. And should we talk about the competition as well? That we can share a little bit about that. Should I hand that over to you?
Yeah,
you always explain it so beautifully.
I'll try and do this quick. Yeah, we're having the Danube Books first ever writing short story and poetry competition. It's a 1,000-word limit. And we're going to release all the winners in a compiled volume that is going to be published. And 15% of the proceeds will be donated to the Trevor Project, which is a nonprofit that helps LGBTQ prevent suicide prevention in the LGBTQ community. So we love them. We've supported them before. We have an open submission. There's no deadline right now. We're just waiting for people to put in what they've got. So short story, poetry, 1,000 words, and to get it all themed together, we want 3 things. And you can see in the picture. Oh, this gone. Never mind. You could have seen in the picture. So there's a magnifying glass Saturn, the outer rings of Saturn, and a wolf in the image there. And that's the 3 things we want to have celebrated in your writing. And we want you to present them creatively. It doesn't have to be a wolf. It doesn't have to be the outer rings of Saturn. And it doesn't have to be a magnifying glass. But those 3 things have to be in it. It could be names of a drink on a cocktail menu. It could be references to a sci-fi traveling through outer space. It could be something. We want you to be creative, come up with your thing. If you can fit these 3 elements into a haiku, I'll be very impressed. But that's what we want. Just bring in just 1,000 words. There is a $10 submission fee so that we can pay the people who are going to be the judges and reading all this stuff. And eventually it will be published. And so, that's, I think, most of the details.
That is well done. And also on the screen, you can see the PayPal thing there. It's a different email address, but don't worry about that. It's changed. It's still the same thing. So you can scan that in, and I will pop up on the screen as well for you the email address to actually send your submissions to. I'll see if I can actually get it spelled correctly this time. That would be useful, wouldn't it? Now I've got to find it.
We
It's
did
now
spell
in
it
the
wrong
list.
last time. Yes, make sure you submit the correct spelling of the
There
address.
we go.
There it is.
There we go. So you can submit it there as well. And yeah, so we're looking forward to that. So once we've got all of the submissions and we've kind of got a collection that we can get our heads around, then we're going to have our judges read it and they're going to make final decisions about which which stories or poems are going to be making the final cut, and then they will be published in a compilation book, which is going to be awesome. So submit.
I might have to brush up my poetry chops right quick. I might have to brush up because it's been a while since I wrote any original pieces.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Yeah. So any sort of genre is welcome, and all themes. As long as it's got those 3 elements, it doesn't matter. You can have it in whatever way or whatever format you like. So there you go. So I'm going to say a huge thank you to our lovely guests today, who are hopefully going to be returning to us soon. Again, massive thank you to my wonderful co-hosts, as always, who are always there to sort of brighten me up, and also are just amazing people, all over anyway. So thank you so much. And I'm going to say farewell, adieu, and have a lovely day. Bye.
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 Uh-oh, what happened to our